I've eaten at, excellent restaurants. And then people ask me, what's your favorite restaurant? I was like, honestly, it's probably just in moments of disaster in our own personal lives. When we have these hard moments and disasters, people want to, I think it would surprise people if they built up either the courage or maybe if it's a pride issue. There's probably so many reasons why, but I would definitely hope that people would. We are all going to have to go through very hard things, trying things, difficult things, whatever it is. I just choose to try and find that 1% difference that they found at this tennis academy was that every practice, every training, every lesson was, I do believe that there's an importance there of just being able to pull something out, just looking at it and seeing if it's something you want to put back. And you do not have to. But if you do, make sure you do it with that intent.
Welcome to The Intentional Way, where literally every moment is a step towards purposeful living. I'm Bryan Hatch, here to explore the power of intention with you. Learn from our guests who embody intentionality. I'm glad you're here with me. Let's get started. Welcome to another episode of The Intentional Way. I'm your host, Bryan Hatch, and I am excited, as always, with another guest. Today's episode will hopefully span a lot of different subjects. I'm excited to talk to this person for very, very many reasons. You could look at him and you could try to find him online, and you'll probably find a million of his name online. And even he's one of several in his own family. But our guest today is George Wright. He is a real estate developer, real estate investor, gold hunter. I'll say that way instead of gold digger. And just a really great guy to be around. I'm excited to have him on the show. George, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks, Brian. Really happy to be here.
Dude, stoked.
It is weird calling you Brian.
I know.
Hatch.
We knew each other in an era of life where first names were not something that we spoke of very often.
No, not at all. But I'll try my best.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I love to start this show with is, what is something that someone couldn't know about you if they tried to search you? If someone did find you, which I think that's going to be hard for someone because there's a million George Wrights in the world.
Yeah.
But if someone was looking for you, they found you online, they would know this, that you do real estate, they would know some things about you. But what is something that no one online could really know about you that would be fun to share?
Oh, wow. Okay. Good question. I'm trying to think. I've been, pretty effuse with things that I like. I'm on Twitter, so I was going to say, one of my favorite restaurants, but everyone knows about it because, when Taco Bell took the Mexican pizza off.
You gotta
yeah,
bring
when
it.
Taco Bell, I know everyone's like Taco Bell. I'm like, yeah, I've eaten at, excellent restaurants. When I went back to Argentina in November, I ate at a couple Michelin star restaurants down in Buenos Aires. It was phenomenal. And then people asked me, what's your favorite restaurant? I was like, honestly, it's probably just Taco Bell. And they took the Mexican, it's embarrassing, but it's like, I'm happy. But when they took the Mexican pizza away, so this is, antithetical to your what you were driving at, which is what would not people. But if people go through my timeline on Twitter, I'm like, Taco Bell, you've made the biggest mistake of your life. You can't do this. And it was gone for like 2 years. And some pop, rap musician girl, she also likes the Mexican pizza, and she like single-handedly got it back. And
oh, wow.
Yeah. So I'm happy about that.
You didn't take credit for that.
No, I wish I could, but has much more celebrity than I ever could have. I was never really famous with the TV show. I was much more fame-ish. And so that was about the best we had, just 2 seasons of the TV show. But so I'm trying to think, that would have been my like obscure, like nobody knows this. I don't think people would have expected it, but if people go deep enough, they would find that I am a Taco Bell enthusiast. Man, I don't know. If online, I don't think it's well known about my wife. My wife and I met the last day of our junior year in high school. And then we did cheer together. Now cheer, people kind of know me as cheer, but I met my wife, I was 16 years old when we met. And then she did not give me the time of day for a good solid year and a half. So our whole senior year, we were in close proximity doing cheer together. We competed in region, state, national competitions for high school. And then she just didn't give me the time of day. But eventually after we graduated, she came around, and I don't know, it's probably one of my favorite parts about me is her and our story. I think, but it's not one, it's one I share with people. I'm not like hiding it, but it's not one that I think if people were to look it up online, be like, okay, there's this and his wife. And I'm like, whoa, my wife and I worked hard to enlist my wife as my wife. That was a hard, arduous process, because all my senior year I dated, but man, it always just kind of came back to her. I was like, man, I really love this girl. She's something different about her. I really want to end up with her. And then, but I was a flirt. I dated a lot. So it was hard for her to distinguish that difference. Is he flirting with me like he flirts with the other girls? And I'm like, no, I know it's different. I know it's different. Yeah. Now time has proven that I was right, but there's no way she could have known that.
Yeah.
So anyway, I don't know. That's probably something that you couldn't just Google and find. I don't know.
So you met when you're 16, and this is in Utah?
Yeah. So I'd already, emancipated. So my mom and dad helped me. I think you kind of know a little bit of this, but my mom and dad helped me kind of transfer guardianship away from them so that I could live in Utah instead of in California, in Northern California, where I was growing up at the time.
Yeah.
And so, my junior year is when I was now kind of on my own. And then I met her that last day of junior year. She was a cheerleader already. And so I was trying out for cheer, which you didn't have to, they just check your pulse. If you're a guy, they just check your
pulse. If you're a guy and
pulse.
you have muscles.
That's it. They're like, you're good. We'll let you do it. So that was when we met. And then, it's cheer through the whole summer between junior and senior year. So we got a pretty good long year together before we graduated.
Yeah. So obviously we're talking about intentionality, but the things that you bring up, I'm just so interested to know more about. You had mentioned previously, but just a moment ago, that you had emancipated. And I think I'm not necessarily interested in the process to become emancipated, but the intentionality behind that. Because I know that you've shared with me the relationship you had with your parents. Like there are some people that might be listening, or young people that are like, sweet, dude, I don't want to be in my parents' home either. But I don't think how it was. So tell me a little more about that.
Yeah, really, it actually was the exact opposite is true. It was very, very hard to leave my family and the home that my parents provided for me and the family that I had. I'm one of 4 children. I'm the second oldest, and very, very close with both my parents. And so, that was the hurdle. The hurdle wasn't, leaving great friends that I had, which was hard in of itself, but that wasn't the hurdle. It wasn't, leaving the weather, although very hard. California, even Northern California weather can be nicer than harsh Utah winters. It really was not being able to be with people I considered, even at the age of, 16 when I left, really good friends. My mom and dad, I know they say don't be friends with your kids. And I never felt like they were, they parented me. Yeah. I had boundaries. I had, my dad taught respect. My mom, she spent a lot of time making sure that I was multifaceted. So, I'm going to cooking class down at the San Francisco School of Culinary Arts while my dad's like, hey, make sure you get to your kickboxing classes that you have, and, making sure I'm getting to, those elements, right? So I was pretty, well-rounded in that regard. It was really hard leaving them, but it was something that at that age I knew and felt really kind of in my bones I needed to do. So if you want to talk about, intentionality and being intentional is something, at that age I saw what I wanted to do, not 10 years out or 20 years out from there, but I knew what I wanted to do in the short term. And I think a short term, people should be, and I try and do this as well, is like, well, what can you get done in a year? And then, try and get it done in, half that.
Okay.
What do you want to be doing in a year and try and get it done in half that? And sometimes you might pull it off. Most of the time you won't. And sometimes it'll probably take twice that, which is why you want to work you want to work towards those things. But in that, year to 3 year term at 16, being a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, Mormons as we're called, I wanted to serve a mission, but I didn't know if I really wanted it at that point in time, just because I was a member of the church or just because it was kind of the thing to do. But luckily, I should say, my dad was a convert to the church, and they were very much like, don't do anything just because you love your mom and dad and you like that, that's a stupid reason to do anything. What do you want to do? And that was when I started figuring out okay, my parents are empowering me with this concept that I should be figuring out what I want and the reasons why I want them. And that was that time. That was a big junction in my life, a juncture, I should say, in my life where I said, well, okay, hold on. I'm kind of into this church thing, not a perfect churchgoer, not a perfect member, right?
No one
but
is.
Someone that, right. Thank you. but certainly that was the direction I wanted to be moving. I wanted to go in that direction. And that was, I felt like a leap. There was a lot of drugs. and even some violence, at the school that I was going at the time. So it was just something I wanted to pursue. So I said, well, how do I do that? My dad's got a job here, steady job. He's been in this, working with this company for as long as I've been alive. Well, what's the solution? And that was the solution. And they helped me do that. So it was really great that they allowed me and afforded me that opportunity. Then I would fly home my junior year almost every month, fly back to California just to have FaceTime with them.
Yeah.
My senior year, when we started doing cheer, you're not able to travel. You're, basically have events every weekend and activities and things. So they would come visit me every once in a while, and that was good. So I definitely knew what I wanted, though. And then it's about trying to help others see what you want and then explain why. And then people get on board to those ideas, I think. And I think that's translated in my life. If you can convince your parents to let you move out at 16, not for delinquency, right? But just, a good kid, great family life. If you can convince them to do that because you have a purpose and an intention of where you want to take your life, then you're going to be able to, I think, convince people later on in life. And I think I understood that concept. Like, if I can convince my mom and dad to do this, what else can I convince people to support me in, right? If I believe in something big enough, can I get people to believe with me in those things? And that's, entrepreneurship to a T, right? You have to get people on board to those ideas, which, later in life ended up helping, but, the mission.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Well, what I find very interesting is that a lot of people follow patterns in their youth. And it sounds like that's one of those that you figured out, if you learn this special skill set of, if I can convince them to do something good that is something that I want, and they jump on board and help me, and it actually produces the outcome, that's a skill set worth everybody having. I feel like there's people that become runners, they become athletes, or they become really smart, or a writer. Like, there's a lot of things you can do, but at that age, if you learn like, this is my jam. But one of the things you learned, at least it sounds like, as your jam was, if I can get someone on board with my dream, my vision, then it's more likely to happen. And maybe I'm putting words in your mouth, but that's fascinating.
I don't disagree with that at all. I think ultimately, aren't we always in some type of a negotiation wherever we might be? And it's not that I was negotiating with my mom and dad at the time, or not that, but once you've settled and, we have internal negotiations with ourselves.
Oh, yeah.
Right. Cognitive dissonance, and like, what do you really want? And then, well, if you really want this, then why do you do the opposite? And, all these different things. Then you try and kind of find those, you need to ultimately delete, certain things, those aspects. That's the negotiation internally. But yeah, once you get this idea, I think something that you believe in, the truth is you don't, there's been plenty of things that I've believed in that nobody did. Where maybe failed at helping other people see it is the wrong way. There's certain things in life you just don't get anyone's help and support with.
Yeah.
There really are. But there are obviously plenty of opportunities in life where if you believe in something, as much as I believe, I don't know, somebody's going to go eat a Taco Bell after watching this. You know what I'm saying? Like, man, George really likes Taco Bell. I'm going to give it a shot. And that was it. That's all that took. Right.
Yeah.
So when somebody sees that, that desire and passion and intention and all that stuff, that is pretty contagious. It can be. And then, so when you do get to enlist that support, I do agree. I think I knew what I wanted, and I knew why I wanted it, so I didn't know how yet. And then my parents were like, well, we can help with the how, but you definitely know the what you want, and you know why you want it.
Yeah.
So, a lot of times I think people want to help, what is it? Mr. Rogers, the quote when he says, when there's terrible disaster, I think of, obviously 9/11. You can go to, the incident happened in Las Vegas a few years ago. Ad nauseum, you can list all these different terrible moments and these brief moments. But Mr. Rogers would just say, hey, whenever there is something like this, look for the people that are helping. So, the camera's on there and they want to, show you everything and it's sensational. But there are people and you will see them and they are there just helping. So I think that's true in our lives, in moments of disaster in our own personal lives, certainly orders of magnitude less than some of these ones I've mentioned. But, when we have these hard moments and disasters, people want to help. And even when there's not calamity, people do want to help. If they can, their default, I think, is, well, how can I help the situation? I know that's certainly mine anyway. My dad's line, he taught me so many maxims before he passed away, but one of the ones I remember pretty often is like, son, don't you ever withhold a favor if it costs you nothing. I'm like, oh, okay, well, that's not bad advice.
Yeah.
So
I find that there's so many topics to think about, but in the vein of helping and wanting to help other people, I think maybe at a general level, people are not great at asking. I mean, you said, like, I have a vision and a desire, and I'm going to go after it, and then I'm going to enroll as many people as I can to help me do this in some way, shape, or form. Maybe not in every instance, right? But that's like maybe a theme. And some people struggle with like getting anybody, or at least bringing it up. Like, it's kind of like, this is my goal, or this is my dream, or this is something that I'm struggling with, or that I'm working on, and they just like keep it to themselves. And they don't recognize that in the intention of enrolling other people, it makes it happen way faster.
Yeah, well, I mean, again, if we understand that people do want to help, generally speaking, and I'm not saying, like, I'll tell you, one of the things I absolutely hate doing is helping people move in or out of their home at all. I just don't like doing it. Now, I try and go to the gym pretty often, and people, oh yeah, George, he can help lift this couch, and I'm like, listen, I can lift small weights with handles on them, and I can do that. I've been doing that for a very long time in my life. But a couch is not that, and I don't want to jeopardize this hobby that I've had since I was 12 years old of going to the gym and working out like a gym rat, just like my dad before me and my uncle. And, I don't want to jeopardize it for moving. So I don't want to say that I always want to help, but there are things that I am excited and eager to help with all the time. It's just not moving. So I think if you can find, that's the disconnect sometimes is, if somebody were to come, I was like, no, I don't want to help you move. I'm pretty outspoken about it,
Right.
but, and I have done it. But obviously I've done it a bunch, but as I've gotten older, I'm like, yeah, I just don't want to do this anymore. It's not how I want to help.
Yeah.
But then in other instances, I do. I'm like, oh, this is great. I'd love to help with this. This comes a little bit easier for me, and I think I'd be able to help in a helpful way, simply. So I think if you do want to try and give those people opportunities, I'm not sure entirely why people are, I think the reasons would probably be kind of legion of why people don't want to ask for help. I've always felt pretty comfortable asking for help, and I never saw, it's kind of like when you're in the gym and you ask for a spot. Yeah, like spot me, you get stronger through those moments. If there's something you just can't lift on your own, just ask for the little nudge and you get through it. I learned that when I was 12 years old. My dad's like, all right, you're 12, it's time to go to the gym. I'm like, okay, that time's now. Okay, I guess we're going to go to the gym. And he's like, hey, you can do 8 reps or you can push to 10 and I'll be here for you. I got you on those last 2. And I mean, it's like, taps, and those things make the big, that's a big difference. And so I don't know if, I'm not going to say that's the reason of my psychology of why I've never felt, but it just makes sense to me of like, well, if somebody's good at something and I'm trying to be good at it also,
yeah,
what's your thoughts on this? What's your advice on this? And I think, so many people have probably taught that in books and like, yeah, ask somebody that knows. I think it would surprise people if they built up either the courage or maybe if it's a pride issue. Again, there's probably so many reasons why, but I would definitely hope that people would break that down because it's really cool stuff that happens on the other side of just kind of asking for help.
Hey, real quick, if you're enjoying this episode, please subscribe, follow, and download our episode. Your support allows us to bring more intentional guests just like this, and it means the world to us. Now, let's get back to the episode.
Well, maybe tell us a little more about what you have created in a network. I mean, if you have built that skill set, and that's one of the things that maybe is an innate in your intentionality is just enrolling people and getting people. I know you're up to big things. You're not working on small problems, you're working on big problems as far as I can tell. how has your network helped you create that?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the big things is, this. I think we may have talked about this, so you'll have to forgive me if I'm, repeating stuff we've talked about, because I think last time we went for lunch for an hour and ended up spending 3 hours or 4 hours together.
Yeah, it was good.
It was a great time. It was super fun.
Great.
But there's the saying that says, it's not really what you know, but who you know.
Yeah.
Everyone says this. I think it's wrong. I think it's actually flawed. Only that it doesn't really qualify it to the extent that it needs to be. I'm sure you have people in your phone. I've got, people on my phone that, I know. And like, if I were seeing something, I'd be like, hey, George, what's going on? Or they'd be like, George, right? Or like, remind me your name, like all those different types, right?
Yeah.
And then I have other people that, drop what they're doing 10 tables away at a restaurant and have to come over and say hi. Okay, so then it's really not true that if you have people on your phone that and know you, but, what's your name again? Or, oh yeah, I remember we met. Or, okay, so you know that person. And that's where they say in this kind of value proposition, it's not what you know, but who you know. Well, there's plenty of people that aren't going to take your call if you call them. Yeah. And there's plenty of people on my phone that if I call, they're not going to take the call. Either the relationship hasn't been developed or whatever it is, right? Or they don't like me or whatever it is, any of the reasons. So I really feel like that statement, that maxim, should be, it's true. I do believe it's true that it's not really what you know, but who you know. But I put a comma at the end. So it's not really what you know, but who you know, comma, and if they like you. That's like such a key component, right?
Yeah.
And so really that starts from just this kind of, just genuine care. And I mean, you're great at this, Bryan. Like, I think I noticed this when because we knew each other 20 some odd years ago.
Yeah.
But, and
kind of like in different,
yeah, and we had moments where we chat and we'd catch up out there, down there, but not for long. We weren't, and we haven't talked a ton over the last 20 years. Right.
No.
But, I don't know when this happened or if it's always been there and I was just missing it, but it's just genuine interest. Hey, well, hold on. Let's take that time. Let's get to know one another. And I think that, people do like that generally. They want that connection with people and they want to be able to share ideas and hear heard, feel heard and be seen kind of things. Right.
Yeah.
So, I think that's an important element period in networking. So there's people that, people have got me where I'm at. Arnold Schwarzenegger had this great idea or shared this thought pretty recently, actually, because he's kind of at the end of his storied career and it's, pretty eclectic career. It's not just movies. Right.
Yeah.
And he just said, I'm actually, everyone looks at me like I did something. It's everyone around me that got me here. And I feel in large part the same way, from my family to, friends that believe in me. I mean, my friends treat me more often than not. They treat me like, I don't know. They treat me like I'm awesome. You know what I mean? Like, find friends that treat you like you're awesome. And, I can't recall too many friends, and especially the best ones that ever, actually kind of put me down in any way or even make, jokes that are, diminutive in any way. I've always felt like they're always like, oh man, George, this guy, and I'm like, okay, I can rise to that maybe, so it's always, I've always appreciated that. And then in business, I feel like that's kind of been the same. Like, when I've walked into rooms, I have guys that when they introduce me, they start introducing me and I'm like, oh, who's this guy? I can't wait to meet him. And I was, oh, you're talking about me, right? So, those connections are really valuable, and you want to be surrounding yourself, with people that are like that, even if you're not seeing them all the time. And surrounding is kind of a weird word as well. I don't hang out with a lot of people. I don't spend time with a lot of people. I have a home office. I always have had. So for 21 years, if I'm home, I've just been in my home office. And my home office has evolved over time, right? To a place where I've continued to enjoy and be and work, and I can focus and do all those things. But, so I'm not out and about, but when I do connect with people, I do try and make it, meaningful. Not, I don't know if it's fair to say, I don't want it necessarily meaningful for them. I just want it meaningful for me, but I think that you can't make something meaningful to yourself without it automatically making it meaningful for them. That's how I would interpret that, maybe.
Yeah.
I hope.
Yeah.
Because that's how I feel when I'm talking to people and I'm building those relationships or spending time. I'm like, well, this is great. I want to spend this time here. That's meaningful to me, and let's make this fun. Let's make it productive. Let's make it, valuable for one another.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's exactly what you asked, but that's
beautiful.
what I thought.
I wish I could go back in time, and sometimes I wish I could go back in time and do it again with what I've learned. Right? Man, just think of 20 years ago in Argentina, if I had been more curious, I would have learned a lot more instead of kind of take things at face value. But I remember when I first got to know you, is what I'd say, but it was from afar. It was kind of like I'd see you at meetings and see you at places, but didn't know you. And for me, it was in seconds, I was like, dude, charismatic, this guy's got confidence. Obviously he's a good dude. I can see that. And but learning about people and getting growing a network and trying to be a better relationship with people, I think that's where I've found the most joy, is learning that skill set, because I found that I love the intimate settings. I love the one-on-one, maybe 3 or 4 or 5 people talking. When it's a massive group, and I feel like I'm pretty extroverted. I'm happy to be in front of a crowd. It doesn't bother me. But I thrive on the one-offs, the little, those little conversations with my daughter, the little things I get to do that no one else is ever going to hear. It's never going to be written out in a book. It's just very, very specific to the situation. But it does require curiosity. It does require an intention. That, for me, I've learned that, man, if I could have gone back and just been more, hey, what did you mean by that word? Because I didn't even know what that was in Spanish, and I'm just skipping over that one because I know the context clues of these ones. I could have asked and learned a lot more about people at that point. But I love what you say, that it's the depth of the relationship you have. And I think of the way you described that with your parents. There was a connection that was obviously intimate, very, very real and important. And when you made that change, they wanted to support you because there was a relationship built. It wasn't like you were trying to break up the relationship.
Right.
And you got something out of it. That's really neat.
Well, I mean, it's funny as well. I was the tip of the spear for my entire family. My entire family ended up in Utah.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I mean, we're talking never lived in Utah ever. Not, my mom never did. My dad never did. My mom, I shouldn't say that. They went to college there.
Okay.
But I mean, they didn't, before that or after that, that wasn't on their radar. And that moment where I came, that was the thread that eventually turned into the rope that brought him in, because everyone eventually came to Utah. And now all my family, my immediate family, is all in Utah right now. So, those change can happen, as a result of those big changes. We didn't know then that 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, 8 years later, I think my sister finally, that was all going to happen. But, it did. And so it's kind of interesting I look back and I'm like, I don't know if I'm saying sorry you guys all ended up here or what, but I just knew that I wanted to be there. I wanted to be in Utah. I wanted to have that kind of experience. And I'm grateful for my children to be able to have it. And I worry that I have worried at times that they might not appreciate it in the way that I did, having not seen the contrast of the schooling system, and the education system, and even the social system I had in California. And I had incredible friends there. I still do, really great friends, but and ultimately you'll find what you want to find no matter where you are. I do believe that also. But there were certainly some challenges that exist in California that are a lot harder to find, certainly then, maybe less so now, but still to an extent in Utah now. So Utah always kind of talks about a bubble, and I'm like, listen, I've been to over 40 countries. I'm just fine in my bubble. And when I say I've been to, but when I've lived in, I mean, not just, we lived in Argentina for 2 years, but I lived in West Africa for almost 5 years. I've spent massive swaths of time, not just 1 week here, 2 weeks here, but months and months in several other countries, both in Central South America and the Middle East. So I know what the world has to offer. I've seen it all. I'm very happy in my bubble. Actually, I don't mind it. I'm not naive to, what it is and what it's not, but, man, I have 5 kids, I can explain to them and help them experience, the world and see what Utah can't offer. I can do that, but, I just like that they're there. And I really have seen, especially with my older kids so far, we'll see, TBD with my younger kids, but, certainly my older 2 and 3, kids, they're just great kids, and they're surrounded by great friends and great, just what are you guys going to do? And they're like, oh, we're going to go reverse pickpocket. I'm like, what's that? It's like, well, we try and give people things that they don't know about as a gift. And I'm like, okay, well, that's not what I was doing at 14, 15, 16. I don't think I was anything that wholesome, and their idea of a wild, weekend is, they're in my senior daughter, my oldest daughter, she's in the middle of a big, massive water fight that's going on with her whole class.
Is it the gun?
Yeah.
Shoot
Yeah. So they
gun?
call it senior splashing, and it's kind of a play on the word assassin, but, nobody's killing anybody.
Yeah.
But yeah, and these are the kind of ideas that they're coming up with. And I'm like, man, I wish I would have had this more of this. And they've just gotten better and better with more and more wholesome and fun, great ideas to kind of have fun, but not ruin it with poor decisions.
Yeah.
Not that any of these kids, again, perfection, fine, but they're just generally in mass, they're just trying to do good, fun things. And I just love that for them. So I'm grateful to be, a Utah now.
There you go.
So it's great.
That's good. I think when there's an age-old debate of is intention created or are you born with it? We're all innately our personalities. We have certain traits that are natural to us. But when it comes to you say we'll see how it works for my kids, because certainly they're going to live a different life than you did. They don't see the contrast the way you did. Not that you couldn't teach them certain things, but they're not going to have the same life.
Yeah.
So let's get into the intentionality. How do you teach them some of the things you've done? Because I on the outside, you've lived in countries, you've done different things. You're up to big things. You're not just hiding away. I know you might stay in your home office. That's fine, but you're not hiding in your home office. You're getting things done. So how would you teach someone to become more intentional? Or maybe I should start here. How has intentionality served you? And then we get to that question.
Yeah, I think that's, I appreciate the pivot on that question. So, for me personally, there's very, very, very few things in my life that I have wanted and not got. Period. Full stop. And, I remember one of the, statistically, at the time when we went out on our missions, statistically, it was more likely to become a naval aviator than it is for your girlfriend to wait for 2 years while you're gone, right? And this is a girl, like I said, that didn't really want to give me the time of day our whole senior year, a little bit after we graduated. Then finally she came around, and we only dated for 6 months. She had an awesome guy that she was already kind of dating, and he was off on his mission, Uruguay, just next door to us.
Wow.
And she was kind of waiting for him. And I'm like, well, maybe don't wait for him. Maybe just start dating me now. So then I leave, and then, he comes back. He had his at bat again there, and
while I'm
still in Argentina, because he was a year older than I was. And, but statistically, it's like, again, you have at the time a better chance of becoming a naval aviator and an Air Force pilot, than your girlfriend just waiting for you for 2 years. And, and I got that, what are the chances that a kid could move and transplant, and I left my mom and dad, came to Utah. Then I ended up being able to do, like a month and a half, 2 months out in Tokyo, Japan. I went out there, and then I came back and finished my junior year. There's a lot that happened in my formative years that kind of helped my worldview. Like, wait a second. If you really want something, you can't actually get it. Now, I'm not saying, anyone can fly to Japan if their parents buy them a ticket. So I had that financial support, and I understand that, there's some of those components, but there was a lot of stuff that's happened in my life that had absolutely nothing to do with wherewithal, resources or anything like that. It had to do with resourcefulness. And I think you've heard that distinction before, right?
Yeah.
Everyone's like, well, I don't have the resources. Well, okay, but do you have resourcefulness? Are you reaching out to people that do have the resources? Are you figuring out how to compile resources? Are you figuring out how to just, those things have served me very well. And I realized at a very young age, like, the world's very small. Like at 16, I'm on the other side of the planet in Japan. And I'm like, this is just kind of like where I'm from. I can't read anything,
Yeah.
But I'm saying you realize, like, wherever you are, it's not too dissimilar to where you may have started, kind of a thing. So the world felt much smaller to me very early on. And then, this idea of, I've just found there's very few things that I've wanted that I haven't been able to achieve in life. And if I were to be honest, I can't think of like one right now where I'm like, I really wanted this and I didn't get it. And even if I were to come up with it, if I still want it, if those, goals or desires have shifted in me, then I either don't, or it just hasn't happened yet, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think that that's nice. Just have this idea, intentionality and being intentional about what you want and why you want it, I think is very important. I coached high school cheer for my son. I did that for 2 years, just his junior and senior year. And I said, okay, well, he's done, I'm done. And the team was very successful. It had a really good start before I'd gotten there. And since I left, they went back and they did, better than us at nationals than the year before. Just a great program. It was awesome to be a part of it. But, some of the kids on the team, I remember one of them, she asked, well, I want to grow up and I want to be rich. So she asked me, so how can I be rich? Because she, she spent time at the house. And so, she's kind of used context clues to realize that, we're probably doing a little bit better financially than most. And, and I just said, well, why do you want to be rich? And her answer was, well, I want to travel the world. I want to travel the world. And I want to see, and I said, well, why don't you go work for an airline? You work for an airline, and I guarantee if you budget right, you'll be able to go visit any place you want once a month, worldwide. And she's like, oh, I didn't think about that. And then she said, well, but I also really want a nice car. I was like, okay, well, why do you want a nice car? Do you want a nice car? And keep in mind, she's 17 at the time.
Yeah, it's okay.
And I know when I was 17, I wanted a super nice car, and I know why I wanted it. And I really didn't want it just to drive it. I wanted it so everyone else could see me driving it. And that's pretty normal, I think, for just
that age.
And to be fair, I think it's just part of, for some reason, just human nature is like, this proving of, and
make me worthy of.
Exactly right. And then I think the other side is, maybe fitting in a hierarchical system as, well, if I drive this, then that means I'm here and you're here because you drive that. One of the most wealthy guys I know, he's a partner of mine in 2 companies, and he's done incredibly well. And I remember when he was my boss, he's the only boss I ever had when I first got my first job out of, off the mission. Mm-hmm. And he drove the same car forever, and you would never tell that this guy was making, the kind of money that he's making. And I mean, but that just wasn't, he's like, well, I don't care. It just gets me from here to here, so there's a lesson in there, as well. Like it just wasn't his thing. Now he loves cars, and I'll be honest, he has upgraded and bought a couple fun cars. He has one on order right now that you have to specially order. And, so it's not that he doesn't like those things, but the reason why is so that's what I was asking the girl on my, on the cheer squad. I said, well, why do you want the nice car? Why do you want to travel? Do you want to travel so you can post it to the gram and look at how great I'm doing? I'm obviously making money because I'm traveling the world. I want this nice car because look at me. So if it's from that perspective, your why might not get you. That's really not enough. Making you think I'm cool isn't going to give you that wherewithal, that resourcefulness you need to get the things you really want. Because you're like, well, I'm wanting what I think he thinks what I think he wants.
Yeah.
Well, that's not, that doesn't have depth. That's not going to get the distance. It's not going to make you run the distance and fight the distance. So then so internally, I think you need to really understand what and why, what you want and why you want it. You know, the what and why. Who is it? Simon Sinek.
Simon Sinek. Yeah.
And yeah, you know, figure out the why and everything else, you know, and you need that internally. And it is a really great salient point he comes up with that, you know, and he's talking it from a marketing perspective, but I mean, internally, we got to know why we want things.
Yeah.
And by the way, you always have the right to change your mind. You know, I tell that to my kids at any point in time. You know, if they're mad or angry, I was like, hey, you can change your mind at any time you want. You know, you can focus on something different at any time. That's your prerogative, and it's all of ours. You might want something, you know, and then halfway there, you might realize it's not, you don't want it as bad as you thought. Or wait a second, that desire only got you so far to figure out what you really want, kind of, you know, adjacent to it or entirely opposite to it. You know, that's fine. That's great. But, you know, always pushing towards the things that you want and defining them. I think the scariest thing for me is ambivalence. Just entirely, you know, apathetic and ambivalent to anything at all. That's hard. You know, I think that's a hard challenge. Not one I've had.
I think that's a play of our society is that there's just so much distraction that that has us avoid learning our why or going after something.
Speaking of intentionality, what is your intention for listening to this episode? Are you simply passing the time, or are you here because you truly want to improve something in your life? The way we act is a direct reflection on what matters to us. So right now, while you're here, take a quick moment and rate this episode, or leave a quick comment. Pulling your thoughts into words is powerful, and it turns passive listening into action. When you act on your intention, that's where change happens. Your rating, your comment, your share, they're not just clicks. They're a signal that what we're building together matters, that conversations like this deserve to grow. Each action helps this message reach more people who are looking to live intentionally. And here on YouTube, tapping that like button, commenting below, or sharing this video with someone who matters to you is telling the algorithm that intentionality is worth spreading. It takes just a few seconds, and it creates a bigger ripple effect than you might realize. I created this show because I wanted to help people find their way, find the intentional way.
The thing that I find interesting in what you've said, I mean, with many things, my goodness, is that there's the why and there's the resourcefulness of it all in intention. But I'm thinking of like listeners, the people that I've talked to about some of the shows that I've done, and I'm hearing some of their comments of like, well, this guy's he's got been able to do everything, been able to accomplish everything that he's ever wanted, right? And I'm like, okay, but let's break it down. Some people, like this girl you were talking to, and this is my take on it. Obviously, I wasn't there, so I'm interjecting my own opinion into this, not that this is how it was. But she's asking you questions because she's trying to figure out how to get there, and the how is confusing. Like George's how to get there will look different than Bryan's how to get there. Now, but I will say there's a principle, and you've talked about it as the why. I think of it more of as a who you are being, because who you are being is resourceful. Like you are being resourceful in finding, like the why was strong enough, like your internal compass of saying, I want that for the right or wrong reasons. I want that. I'm not quitting until I get it. But the who you were being in it, the being in it was like, no matter what, it's going to happen. It's like, I already believe it's going to happen. So if I got to get this person, I got to get this person to give me some money. I got to get the person to do it. I got to fly around the world on an airline, whatever it is to make that happen. It's like, that's the how. And I think the world gets caught up on, all right, dude, George, write a book and tell me the how, like how you did it and how it worked. And I want to know in every chapter from 1 to chapter 22, exactly how you did it. And someone will read it and be like, I mean, these memoirs, they're good books, are fun to read. I've read them, but you learn that person's how, but I can't take that book and say, okay, sweet. So now I'm going to have my kid emancipate from me. I'm going to force that to happen.
Right.
I'm going to make her do her own thing, and I'm going to ship her off to Tokyo. I'm just going to like follow George's pattern.
Right.
But it won't create the same outcome because of who she is in it. She's, she wouldn't want that the way you want. But so it's who you are in it all that creates it, and then you just pull whatever's necessary in the moment to make it happen. And obviously, on the negative side, if we pull the wrong triggers and we're just doing it for selfish reasons, like that causes its own mess. But if you're just doing it because, hey, I want this nice car because I think it'll bring me some joy. And then you find out even when you have it, it's not as much joy. That's fine. You still learned how to get it. So that's kind of how I interpret all what you said.
No, I think you're spot on. I keyed in on something, you sort of said which is, you can want something good and bad. And that's true also. And so it's really important to kind of curate those things. And that's when, that's when this network kind of comes around, right? When you talk about your network or your people that are around you, and again, I don't always mean like the people that you're always around, but I mean people that you can reach out to and just say, hey, I've been thinking about this. What are your thoughts on this? And, oh, good, man. I haven't talked to you in like 2 years. Yeah, I know, bro, but we're good. I have this question and I thought of you. I need your help. Like, what are your thoughts on this? Or, people you do talk to more frequently or even less frequently than every 1 or 2 years, right? Want to be able to have people whose opinion matters, and who is doing things that are equal to or better than what what you're wanting as well. So you want to have that, which is why they say, for the most part, you're kind of the sum total of the 5 to 10 people you hang out with, right? If somebody, yeah, I mean, that's the principle, right? You have 5 people and they, everything's always wrong, something's always happening bad. Well, you're going to start finding all this stuff that, you're going to be almost competing with who had the worst day.
Yeah.
Conversely, if you have people that are like, oh my word, I had the best day of my life. And not in a one-upmanship kind of thing, but just like, it was an incredible day. And then you're like, oh, I also had an incredible day. Like, what a way to compete if you're going to compete, right? Not who had the worst day, but how's everyone having great days? Those are important perspectives. But when you have these, you want to have a barometer that's outside of yourself to an extent of saying like, is this a good thing to want? Is this a good goal? Is this a good idea, concept? I always tell people when they go to bring a business and I'm like, hey, you bring me a business idea. I want you to know out of the gate, I will destroy it. I will absolutely rip it to shreds. And then I'm going to give it back to you in pieces. And then you get to put it all back together, fill the holes if you can, and then bring it back again. And by the way, you're not done. I'm going to tear it down again, because that's what I've done with my own businesses. There's so many times where I had a great idea and I never poked holes in it. Well, it wasn't a great idea. It couldn't, and I had to find out the hard way, as opposed to, well, this could have been a thought exercise over 6 weeks or 8 weeks and could have taken it to a couple people. But, when I heard negative feedback and I'm like, well, you just don't believe. And I was like, no, there's some healthy measure of pragmatism that you want. I'm always grateful for my wife. We always explain me as the kite and she's the string. And without one or the other, the string would just sit there doing nothing. Without the kite, it would fly and then eventually crash. It wouldn't go the distance. It wouldn't stay, have the hang time. So you need that dynamic tension in anything that you're really going to do. But again, going back to what you said of these people, people, if you have a goal that's good or bad, how are you going to figure out if it's a bad idea? And I'm not just talking entrepreneurial, I'm talking about even personal. How do you know if it's a good desire or a bad desire, righteous desire or an unrighteous desire? You want to be able to have metrics by where you can gauge those things, I think, because ultimately, anytime you want something, and this isn't my quote, but this is from Naval Ravikant, and he says, if you desire is a contract we make with ourselves. And anytime you desire something, you're saying, I cannot be happy until I get it. And that's one way to encapsulate it. I don't know if I fully subscribe to it, in the sense that, there's lots of things that I desire to have, but I'm happy in the journey to get there. So I don't think in other words, I have things that I desire and I want, and I have goals and big things I'm trying to do. And, but I'm so happy in that process. And that thought reminds me of something, I've traveled a lot, like I said, in my business, but very early on in my wife and my marriage, we've been married, it'll be 23 years this October. So I would say probably for, the first 10 to 11 years, so almost first half of our marriage, I was kind of moving, just like, what do I got to do? I got to, resourcefulness, right? And so I was just, shotgun and everything and talking to everybody and like, you want to have a meeting? I will meet you. Where do you want to meet? You want to meet in Miami? I'll be in Miami. Like whatever it took, it didn't matter. Like, you want me to be, where do you want me to be? Dubai? I'll be in Dubai. You want me to be in London? I'll be in London. It didn't matter. Like I was just out, just trying to get things done. And half the time not even able to afford, these things. But I'm like, if that's the step that's in front of me, it's the step I'm going to take. And I could have probably used a little bit more restraint and circumspection and a little bit more of the poking the holes, but I remember when I was traveling back and forth to Africa, and that was a really hard, trying time for our family financially. It was the most galvanizing and strengthening time for our family, though, which again should be no surprise to anyone that goes to the gym, anyone that's done anything hard, can realize, it can be the strengthening moment, and in fact should be. And I would say that anything that somebody's gone through, that if it's broken them, to try and go back just a bit and reassess repurpose that stress, pain, calamity, catastrophe, whatever you want to call it, and don't let it break you. Don't think that if you're alive, you're not broken. That's the punchline, right? It can actually strengthen you. I really do think that. It's not that it's not hard. It's not that it's not devastating. All those things, but I'm just saying that was a moment where I think it was super hard. It was the hardest. It was the hardest. But for our family, it was the most strengthening thing for my marriage and for the relationship with my kids. And I mean, we're talking, I'm gone for 6 months sometimes.
Yeah.
There was a trip I was gone for 6 months straight, and I had nothing but a sat phone to be able to call home. This was, no FaceTime, internet, none of this stuff. Internet existed, but I'm saying you didn't have that kind of
Not where you
connectivity. And so anyway, that moment, that time, I remember, things started to turn a little bit of a corner, but still obviously bleak, from a financial perspective. And I was back home, and I was telling my wife, I was like, well, I got to get back to Africa. But then after that, I got to head down to, South Africa, and I got to go over to Dubai, and I got to, wherever these little trips were. And my wife's kind of like, don't pretend to me like you're not having a blast. Don't try it. You're out there hanging with your friends. And I kind of took, I didn't take offense to it, but I felt like she was missing something within me that I needed to explain to her. Which was, and I remember, more or less what I said to her. I said, Marie, don't confuse my ability to enjoy an experience for my desire to do it. And what I meant by that is simply like, we are all going to have to go through very hard things, trying things, difficult things, whatever it is. I just choose to try and find a way to make it positive. Like if I got to walk on coals, I'm going to make jokes about it, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And
I could see you doing that.
Yeah. And I'll comedically hop through and act like a cartoon, like, oh, ow, ooh, ah, kind of whatever I can do to enhance the experience for me. Because if I have to experience it anyway.
Might as well have fun.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And so when I come back, and I'm saying, oh my word, the funniest thing happened, this, that, and the other, well, I'm talking about my experience as far as the ones that meant something to me. Mm-hmm. And so, of course, my wife's viewing it as like, well, it just sounds like you're out there having a really fun time. And I was like, oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize, and I didn't say this to her, but I think, the reaction could have been, I'm sorry that you saw that I was just having fun. I apologize for not explaining to you that I was stuck in a tin hut that was 8 foot by 10 foot, that I got malaria, that I was showering out of a water well with a bucket in an open square, that I was eating maybe every other day, that, this, that, and the other. The two experiences happened simultaneously. Mm-hmm. They really did. They were, I remember I was in this village for 6 weeks, and it was a little village in West Africa in Ghana called Akwaboso. And I was there for like 6 weeks. I ran out of my anti-malarials. I get malaria. I'm hallucinating, like, all these different terrible experiences before I got malaria and after I got malaria, and all this ran its course while I was there. She saw none of it. When I come back, it was, oh my word, this thing happened. The funniest thing happened. This was there. Oh, this happened. And the guy was like this. And, I even explained, and the guy's like, George, you're dying. We've got to get you, medication. And he goes and gets me, this guy named Joseph Apia. And he went and got me this meds. And I mean, I was right as rain. It's 48 hours.
Wow.
And which is tragedy in of itself, cost $2. I was dying. The guy spends $2. And then all of a sudden I'm fine in 48 hours. And then all the people I know that can't have that, in Africa with malaria, so, I mean, what like a ton of things to have to juggle. But yeah, my perspective when I come back is, well, that was hard. But let me tell you the fun stuff that happened. That's just, that's a choice that I get to make.
Yeah.
It's the one I want to have. That's the choice I want to make.
Yeah. If you're going to go, I think the skill set that I'm devising or hearing in what you've said is like, you're just going and tackling conflict everywhere you can. I mean, that's about my perspective. It doesn't mean that's how you would define it, but to emancipate, to go, like you ran into some conflict, meaning something outside of comfort zone. Maybe conflict isn't the right word, but you're going to do things that are uncomfortable out of your free will and choice. You're not doing it by mandate or someone making you do these things. And there are arguably some things that you've done that someone would have said, you are expected to do this. You are supposed to do this. But even then, I still think that you've found a way to get out of the comfort, get into some conflict or some challenge at minimum. And I think maybe that's what I would hope our listeners on this episode, one of the things they would take is that, dude, just build a skill set of like getting outside of your comfort zone, like real far outside of your comfort zone. Because then I've found that when I've got this is a dumb example, but maybe something I can put in. When I've got a trip planned, and I've got a work deadline planned, work gets done a lot faster to make sure I got the trip, right? But like when there's no trip and it's kind of like it's a regular week, whatever, it's like kind of slides into the next week. But it's like if you go and do something, you put some kind of an arrow on the board saying, I'm going to go to there, or I'm going to fly to this place, or I'm going to meet that guy, or I'm going to do this thing. Then it's like, oh, how am I going to wrap all the other things I got to do around that so I can do that too? It's like you're finding a way into the conflict, finding a way into the challenge. And that's what I feel like you've done. And that's, man, I just wish that I wish that everybody that's young, that's listening to this could just like pause for a minute and think, I would love it if they say, how can I be like George? That would be great. But I would rather them say, how can I just go run into some things that are like way outside my comfort zone, challenge, but I want, that I desire, but like I have no reason to believe that I could even do this. Like go try some crazy stuff, not bad stuff, just like hard to do, hard to accomplish. Go solve cancer. Like go do something that is big that you're like passionate about, and knock down walls in the process, because I feel like that's what you've done. And that's the skill set of how I would define what I know of George Wright. I don't know everything about intimately all your life, but that's the sense I get of you, is that you're just, I'm going to go tackle some big things because you desire it, you want it, and that's who you've become in it. You're like, that's why people like myself could say, like, I admire you because, dude, and maybe other people could say, it looks like you're getting everything you want, but you've created a whole system in your life that makes that possible because you believe in yourself.
I'm going to take all that as a compliment and say thank you. And you're not wrong. I do believe in myself. I do, but I am self-aware to the extent that, I'm just as happy to discover a flaw in me as anybody else would be. The old, I want to say it's Epictetus, the old Stoic, said that if ever you find somebody that, you hear speaking ill of you, right? So some guy's talking to you, saying, hey, I don't know if you know this about George Wright, but this, and this. And then you come to me like, George, I heard this. And I was like, well, I don't know who you're talking about, but they don't even know the half of it. Yeah. That's way worse than that, or I can be offended. Like, wait, who's saying, the truth is that, if I were to write my book, which I probably won't do ever. I know there's interesting parts, but if I were to write a book, you have a success book and you have a failure book, and it just happens to be, 1 page of success, 1 page of failure, 2 pages of success, 3 pages failure, 5 pages success. I mean, that's really it. And this, that's just how life's been. But I'll tell you, if I had to pick up both books, which one are you going to pick up? I'd rather just pick up and read about the successes, right? So that's all I was kind of saying with my wife's comment to me, like, just sounds like you're, and even still to this day, I got to head to the office to go, one of my buddies has an office and I go to his office and I'm like, oh, I'm going to go over to Mike's office and we got some stuff. And she's like, you guys just going to sit and hang out? And I was like, well, yeah, that's kind of our job now. Is like, that's the job that I get now, is I get to sit down and we get to talk about ideas. I don't have to, there's less of that. There's less of a grind now. And it's more of like, what can we do? And you start to see more and more possibilities open up to you. I mean, if I were to look back at where I was 2 years ago even, and say that, this asset, I just picked up an asset, a real estate property. It's 1,200 acres. It's incredible. It's the biggest thing I've ever owned in my entire life. 2 years ago, I wouldn't have said it's impossible, but I would have been kind of impressed if I'm like, I'm going to own that, We're like, okay, cool. But when the opportunity came, it's either you back away from it or you step into it and be willing to fail. There's plenty of properties that, I've tried to get and I didn't get. There's plenty of businesses I've tried to launch, not related to real estate, that didn't work. And I'm happy to talk about them, but I don't focus on them. And I think that's an important element. Two of the thoughts that came to mind while you were chatting was, one of them, I want to talk about language, learning a language, speaking a language, and how that's, I think, super applicable to life. And there's just kind of a lesson to be in there. The other one is the tennis player Steffi Graf. So if you go back or just Google whatever, she's not famous now. She was pre-Venus and Serena, right?
Okay.
So, and I am not a massive tennis player. I played a little bit when I was younger, but I'm not a great tennis player. But there was, Steffi Graf opened a camp in Germany, and it was, youth academy, so to speak, for tennis. And they're like, all right, these kids are like the best of the best coming into this academy, and the ones that stay in the academy, they're the best. And they kept trying to figure out what is the defining thing between the top 1% within the top 10%, and then how's that 9% effectively, right? So you have your 1% that's the top of the top, and they're demonstrably better than even that next 9% in the top 10. And then what is it that 9% has in common with that? What does that 9% have in common with basically kind of the 90% below? And there was really only one defining factor for that 1%. And this is fascinating. You can find this. There's guys that have talked about this, I think, as well. But have you not heard this? What is? So
I want to learn.
So that 1% is those kids that are at 1%. And I actually think a lot about my daughter Saoirse, my soccer player daughter. That we're here for that tournament, and I think about her a lot. But that 1% difference that they found at this tennis academy was that every practice, every training, every lesson, was a game. It was play. They were out playing. Just like when we were kids. It's like, Mom, Dad, can I go outside? I want to go play.
Yeah.
That's all these kids are doing. So when they're asked, like, so what did you feel? Like, oh my word, it was so much fun. It was while the kid on the other side of the net is like, okay, how many more of these forehand swings am I going to have to do? How many more of these backhands? It was work. It was practice.
Yeah.
So in a large part, when you go back to this story, when my wife's like, you're just out there having fun, I'm like, you better believe I am. Because if I'm not, I'm stopping. I will stop. If I suffer very little, and it's by choice. Not that I'm not going through hard things. And I promise I've been through very hard things. You can Google it. I've been through very hard things. And, I was in Africa 2.5 years before that TV show ever started.
Yeah.
So I was saying, I was out there in absolute anonymity, ignominy, no hope of a TV show, still doing the same thing. And a lot of times even harder than anything they ever caught on camera. With no hope of a TV show. Like, who even sits back and thinks like, I know how I'm going to solve my problems. I'm shoveling. And we would work, like me and my partner, we would work. We're not just operating equipment. It's just some hard work. And, with no hope of a TV show to come and, start changing our fortunes or whatever. I know what hard work is, but man, if I'm doing anything, it's going to be fun. I'm going to make sure it's fun. I'm going to crack a joke. I'm not going to wallow in whatever you can wallow in. And if I end up, and I'm not saying I've been impervious to it, but man, I will not do it for long. I will not do it for long. I don't complain. and I genuinely don't like to criticize, myself or anybody else for that matter.
Yeah.
So I mean, these things have really kind of shaped my worldview, and so like this tennis academy, man, find a way to enjoy the things you hate.
Yeah.
Right. That's Mike Tyson.
Make it play.
Right. Mike Tyson said that. What's discipline? Discipline's doing the thing you hate, but you do it like you love it. And you get great results out of that. And if you find a way to enjoy some of those things, if you're gonna have to walk across hot coals, make it funny.
Yeah.
At least make it funny.
Yeah, I think in my last episode, this is a great topic. It's amazing. Tell us a little more about what you say in the language learning.
Well, it's, right now I've got, my oldest son, he's currently serving in the Dominican Republic, Santo Domingo East. So he's there. He's been there for about 9 months. And of course, he went into his missions fluent in Spanish.
Fastest Spanish speakers in the world.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely.
Some of them.
Absolutely, though. You're not wrong. And they eat a lot of their S's, right? So, and that we
do that really well.
and so but it's interesting to hear him, speaking, and then because his Spanish was so advanced at the beginning of his mission, just because he's had Spanish his entire life. I don't think I spoke English to him for 9 years. So, his Spanish, now he's speaking Haitian Creole, which is great. So now he's down there and he's not only, talking and teaching and meeting and making friends with the Dominican people, but also the Haitian people that, are finding themselves just next, finding themselves in the DR. But I've got my son, and then I would say probably about 18 to 20 friends, and I get updates from all of these people every week. And, I don't respond to everyone every week, but I bet you I respond to one or two every week, just kind of disparately. Mm-hmm. And one of them was another one of the girls that went, she was also on my cheer team. She was the captain her senior year. We picked her, just this incredible young woman. And so she was the cheer captain her senior year. She graduated. She's now serving in South America, Spanish speaking. And so, I start, and she's like updating everyone. Spanish is so hard. And I was like, all right, I don't know a lot, but I know how to learn a language, especially Spanish. Mm-hmm. And there's not a lot of things that I take pride in, but I love speaking Spanish.
You're great at it.
It's one of my favorite. One of my favorite things.
Yeah.
If I can, speaking Spanish is one of my favorite things.
I was like, man, I'd like to speak like him. He sounds like he's from Argentina.
Well, I appreciate that, and it's one of the things I love. I love speaking Spanish, and so I write her this email and I say, listen, you've got 18 months. She's gonna be a missionary for 18 months, and you don't know any Spanish. You have to learn Spanish as fast as you can. And she's kind of talking about like they're always wanting us to say, but we always sound so stupid. And I was like, good. The more stupid you sound, the more often, the better. And I just tried to explain it to her in an email. I said, listen, if you're going to be out there for 18 months, you have a set number of mistakes you're going to make speaking Spanish. It's basically a finite number, let's call it. Now we know it's infinite, but for the sake of argument, I said in 18 months, you're going to make, fill in the blank. You're going to make 3,750 mistakes speaking Spanish. 3,750 mistakes in 18 months. It is your choice if you want to make them in the first 4 months, 6 months, or the whole 18 months, or not even catch up. Like you only get to 3,000 in 18 months. What's that tell me? You're not speaking enough. Yeah. You're not asking enough from the curious perspective, right? You're not trying to figure it out fast enough. But more often than not, you're not speaking enough. And so you want to fail fast. When you're learning a language, the faster you fail, the better, period. And I would all the time on my mission, so long as it didn't really detract from what I saw as meaningful or important conversations. If it was a little bit more frivolity or getting to know, kind of meet and greet and stuff like that. If I ever heard a word, I would always stop. Hey, I'm sorry, real quick. What was that word you said right before the? Okay. Okay, go on. People are happy to help. They were always happy to help.
Yeah.
So, you're going to make mistakes in your career. And I hope, kids that are, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 23, 25, fail fast. I know you've heard it, but this is what I'm talking about is you're going to make this many mistakes in order to get to your first, whatever that goal is. Do you want to make them in 2 years? Do you want to make them in 10 years or 20 years?
Yeah.
And so that's what I think about, when you kind of compare learning a language to anything you want to get good at in life. So just make all the mistakes you can as fast as you can.
Yeah.
Because that's, you either win or you learn, period.
What I love about that is that the world didn't change. Meaning this, I know it's not the same time period, but this young woman that's doing this, right?
Yeah.
She had the same access to people that would have said, oh, this is the word I said. She had the same access to the people that you did. Not, I get like there's difference, but not really. She could have operated that way and got through the mistakes faster. But how she was being was that, oh, I'm making mistakes, so I'm gonna be more quiet. I'm gonna hold. I'm not saying that's how she was. I'm saying that is a worldview that you could adopt, and that world totally changes, even though it's actually not any different than the world you lived in when you were asking all the questions. Because all those people would have done the same thing to her that they did to you. Oh, I said this. What does that mean? Oh, it means this. Okay, and then keep going. I love the insight into a little bit of George Wright's soul here in the intentionality world. I appreciate what you've shared. Is in a final wrap up, is there anything else that you want to make sure is known before we close out our episode here?
What would you say, like, who's your main, who are the people you know are watching this? Who are the people you hope to watch it?
People that find interest in being intentional and not necessarily always are, listen quite a bit, and people that are already quite intentional and want to find a better level, a new level. Those are the two categories.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, it's good audience, from that perspective. Just the fact that people are taking the time and wanting to learn. I mean, there's an intentionality in and of itself right there to kind of take that time. And I think that's the self-awareness and, the ability to kind of look at something in yourself. I always do the same thing where I'm like, I tell my kids, I'm like, you want to be able to look at something, a behavior or a thought or a goal or whatever. You want to be able to grab it. Like, and I always kind of point to my heart because, we always talk about that heart is really the, we call it thinking with your heart for a reason. Like it's, heart's desire, et cetera, right? And I was just kind of say, you want to be able to take those things and you want to just kind of grab it and you want to kind of put it in front of you. Now it's not you, right? When you grab it and you pull it out and you're just kind of looking at it, you want to try and be objective. This is the idea, I believe, behind self-awareness, right? So, if you're going to talk about being intentional about something, whatever you're going to be intentional about, take that moment and be intentional about examining it and looking at it for what it is. It's not you. What if this is, I get angry fast, or, I get sad fast, or I get frustrated easily, or I get discouraged easily, whatever it is. Okay, I get discouraged easily. Let's look at that. Put some distance between you and that. Like get it out here in front of you. Like, man, okay, I'm not discouraged. Okay, so let's analyze it. I think that ability, also a goal. I have this goal. Okay, well, let me look at it. Oh, it's actually not as cute from over there, That's not as cute as I thought it was. Do I want to put it back? And I think that ability to do that is really going to help. And I know it helps me, when I look at things and say, how bad do I really want this? I can just let it go right now. I can just toss it. It doesn't matter. So that self-awareness in the realm of designing who you are and you're, we talk about being, the kind of person you're being isn't immutable. We get this beautiful opportunity day in and day out to change our being, to change who we are, to, write the next page, et cetera, et cetera. So I would just admonish people or encourage people to just take those moments and just kind of pull out those everything. I mean, you could do this all day long. You'll waste time. You won't get a lot done. But I mean, as frequently as is necessary, and maybe just a little bit more, take those things that you have in your life that you want to be intentional about, or that seem to be making you intentional about certain things. You can be intentional about negative things. Is that not,
For sure.
Rumination is a big, element now. And, they keep, people keep talking and thinking about, cycling through bad experiences or bad, whatever, opportunities or, lost opportunities, whatever it is. So, but I do believe that there's an importance there of just being able to pull something out and just looking at it and seeing if it's something you want to put back. and you do not have to. But if you do, make sure you do it with that intent. You know why you're putting it back.
Yeah.
So you know where you're going to go. You know why you're going to go there. You know, and then you will figure out the how.
I love it. I'm going to double down on that. I think that if people will listen to what you've said and pull out those behaviors or the circumstances or the outcomes or the feelings that they have and examine them, if they do that far more frequently for a short period of time, they'll learn and grow faster. Like you said in the language thing.
Yeah.
If you want to do this, if you want to like not look and not be self-aware for the next 10 years, dude, keep doing what you're doing. If you want to look and see how fast you can fail or how fast you can look at that, why am I so frustrated all the time? If you look at that and you're like, oh, this is dumb. I don't even want that. I'm going to get rid of that. And you keep doing that. If you keep doing that, you're going to notice I did that 100 times a day about my frustration. Well, tomorrow it's going to be 100. It was 200 today, 100. There's ways to fail quickly in that.
Yeah.
And I think those are wise words, George. You're amazing.
It's just what's worked. So I appreciate you, really appreciate you having me here.
Yeah, well, thank you for spending time and taking time away from your family to be here with us. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you for joining us on The Intentional Way. I'm Bryan Hatch, and it's been a true privilege to share this time with you. If today's episode has inspired you in any way, shape, or form, please subscribe, follow, and download our episodes. Your support not only helps us grow, it also enables us to bring more insightful conversations and exceptional guests right to you. Living intentionally begins with a single step, yours. So let's make the most of it. Until next time, seek intention by being completely present.